Exception handling in Python. In this lesson, we will learn what an exception is and how to handle such exceptions. Exceptions are runtime errors that may be caused due to various reasons. Whenever the Python interpreter finds any statement or expression that is syntactically incorrect, it throws syntax error exception. Even if a statement or expression is syntactically correct, the Python interpreter may face some issues that may cause to throw an exception. Some very common exceptions are syntax error, zero division error, value error, type error, indentation error, etc. Please note that syntax error is also an exception. All other exceptions occur even when the code is syntactically correct. Now we know that even a syntactically correct codes may cause exceptions. So as a programmer, we need to think about various situations that may cause our code to fail due to some runtime exceptions, and we need to appropriately handle them so that the program does not stop abruptly. Even if the program stops, it should handle the situation properly. Python provides 4 important keywords for handling exceptions: try, except, else, and finally. If our code uses try block, then there should also be at least one except block. Else and finally blocks are optional. Please note that we may use more than one except block for handling multiple exceptions separately. Here is the basic structure of try, except, else, finally blocks. Try to execute this block of code. Execute this block of codes if exception occurs. Also execute this block of codes if no exception occurs. This block of code must be executed irrespective of whether exception occurs or not. This is our main codes. This is our exception handler. Additional codes. Code that must be executed are placed inside the finally block. So, now we know what an exception is and why we need to handle such exceptions. Now we will learn how to use the try except blocks to handle exceptions one by one. Let's begin with this example. Here we will write a very simple function that accepts 2 numbers as arguments and returns the result of division of the first number by the second number. Two numbers 5 and 0 are being passed to the division functions. Let's run the codes. And our codes fail. The program terminates abruptly because dividing any number by 0 is not allowed. It raises the zero division error exception. To eliminate this kind of situations, we need to handle exceptions that may arise during runtime in our codes. Let's revise the codes with try except block as discussed earlier. Let's run the codes again. Now, it's better. Here the program didn't terminate abruptly, rather the exception was caught by the except block and an appropriate action was taken inside the except block. Here we simply returned a message that our code experienced some exception during executing the codes inside the try block. The message was printed by the print function. In this example, we have handled an exception and the exception was caught by the except block. But we are not sure what actually happened inside the try block. What kind of exception was it? It will be better if we are able to identify the type of exception. Let's revise the code again. Here, after the keyword except, we are mentioning one common exception, zero division error. That is, we are instructing the interpreter to handle only this exception, that is, zero division error exception. Our except block is now able to handle only the zero division error exception. It won't be able to handle any other kind of exceptions. Let's run the code and check the result. Yes, it has caught the zero division error exception perfectly. Now, let's change the second argument to a string and run the code. Our code fails again. Our except block is unable to catch the exception. Now the exception is type error, unsupported operand types for division. The exception was not handled because our code has no mention of it in the except block. Let's revise the code again with another except block for type error. Now our code is able to catch two different kind of exceptions, zero division error and type error. Let's run the revised code again and check the result. Here our code has caught the type error exception too. Let's pass 0 instead of a as the second argument to the function and run the code. So our current code is able to handle both of the zero division error and type error exceptions. If we are not sure about what other exceptions may arise, we may also add an except block without any exception name as shown here. We have already learned how to use try-except blocks in our previous examples. Here we will learn how to use the else and finally blocks in our exception handling codes. Although else and finally blocks are optional, sometimes these blocks may be useful. In this example, we are trying to open a file named Where the Mind is Without Fear.txt. This is actually a poem by Nobel laureate poet Rabindranath Tagore. And here is the text of the poem. If the file is opened successfully, we will read the file line by line and display on the screen. In this try block, we are trying to open the file. The except block here handles the file not found error exception. This code will be executed if the file is not found in the path. If the file not found error exception is not raised, we will process the file line by line in this else block. The codes inside the finally block will be processed irrespective of whether any exception has occurred or not. That is, this code must be executed. Let's run the code. The file is opened successfully and the text of the poem are displayed line by line. That is, the program did not face any exception during the runtime. Look, the text of the poem and the output is the same. Now let's see what happens if the file is not found. As we have changed the name of the file intentionally, the code is unable to find such file. So it raises the file not found error exception. Also, observe that the code inside the finally block has also been executed. The finally block was executed also when there was no exception. That's all for today's lesson. We have learnt the basics of exception handling in Python. We will learn more about exceptions in other lessons later. Practice the code yourself and master it. See you in our next lesson. Bye.